Welcome into Stone Cold Stros. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. You can follow them on X at Palillo, at Josh Jordan 975. And between our episodes here, you can read their blogs covering the Astros, Texans, and Rockets over on sportsmap.com. On today's episode, the worm turns quickly after Houston becomes easy pickings for the Birds. Hader won't be back this season, but could be back this year. If you say so. We have some health updates as Dana Brown hopes by the playoffs his team has more returns than an Amazon warehouse. But before all that, hit like on the video right now, mash the subscribe button to see more of our content, click the bell for notifications to be notified when our content drops. And we're also on all your favorite podcast apps. Just search Stone Cold Stros. Charlie, Josh, welcome in. After taking 2 of 3 from the Yanks and Sox, Houston just gets absolutely curb stomped by the Orioles of all teams in a part of the schedule that, quite frankly, we speculated would be a soft part. But as we said, on paper, but it's in which Houston could make hay, a part of the schedule in which Houston could really take advantage of this time. But instead, the Astros were nearly swept by the O's, outscored 23-5, and it could have been worse. Much worse. Over the last 6 games, Houston has surrendered a total of 44 runs, with Chas McCormick pitching in relief twice over a 5-day period. Charlie, we start with you. How big are the red flags on display after the Astros come out of that Baltimore series?
Well, they're gigantic and they're waving in the breeze, but it doesn't mean that they can't be pulled in and pulled down. To play Pollyanna, because that's just my nature, it was a good week for the Astros on a couple of levels. Yes, the Orioles humiliated them in 2 out of 3 games, but as you referenced, Brandon, I was after taking 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox, so it was a 3-3 week. While the Astros were getting dumped 2 out of 3, the Cleveland Guardians were swept at home by the Atlanta Braves. Maybe in the end, the most critical race for the Astros is the wild card race. The Seattle Mariners at this point on paper definitely have the better team. Are the Mariners capable of winning the American League West? They're capable, but it doesn't mean they'll necessarily do it. But let's say they do. Then it's about the wild card. The Red Sox, frankly, look like a better team than the Astros at this point. The Astros start the new week 2 games ahead of the Yankees, a series with the Yankees to come at Dyken Park. That'll play out. Well, the Astros go into the week still 4.5 games ahead of the Cleveland Guardians. And that is the spot where the Astros must remain above if they're to make the playoffs. If the Mariners win the division, at this point, the wild card standings would read Astros, Red Sox, Yankees, and then that dip to the Guardians, with the Rangers having a scintilla of hope a couple of games below Cleveland. You also mentioned Chas McCormick has finally found his niche, contributing to the 2025 Houston Astros. And then much more seriously, best of all, potentially, knock on wood, Yordan Alvarez survives 8 at-bats in Florida, Corpus Tuesday, then back-to-back games Thursday, Friday. If no problems, I presume he plays next Sunday. And then when the Astros come home from this week-long road trip, Yordan Alvarez can join a lineup kind of desperately in need of fortification at this point. And then we can get to the pitching.
It's kind of interesting to look at, as good as Correa has been since he's joined the team. The Astros have gone just 7-8 since the trade deadline. It's been really consistent, actually. If you look at it, for the month of August, they're basically a bottom third offense and they're a bottom third pitching staff. I'm looking at it right here. They're 25th in runs in the month of August, 23rd in ERA. It's all around. And Jesus Sanchez, he's just in such a slump. He's really hurting you right now. Charlie wrote a piece about Cam Smith's struggles. He's still, looking to put it together at the plate. So they've just got some big holes in their lineup. And it's unfortunate because they're not stacking wins right now while Correa is hot and Altuve's hitting home runs, because eventually those guys will cool off. So it's concerning. I don't know if you guys saw the graphic that the Space City Home Network put up about the Astros bullpen. I mean, it's just night and day. Since July 7th, the Astros bullpen has an ERA of almost 4.99. So, and before that, they had an ERA of 3.21. They were spectacular. So the bullpen is just really taking a nosedive, and it's going to get even harder, right? With Hader being out for the rest of the regular season, they're going to have to figure some things out here. Hopefully some of these guys coming back, getting healthy, maybe they'll find some solutions.
To amplify on the lineup, when Altuve is the DH or at second base, what the Astros are purporting to be playing as a major league outfield at this point, it's just a freaking joke. Jesus Sanchez is a legit player, but since joining the Astros, yeah, he robbed the 2 home runs on Sunday, or the score would have been 83-0, I think. But at the plate, he's hitting 150. His OPS is sub 500. Well, he fits in perfectly. Jacob Melton's got a little run. The guy's hopelessly overmatched at the plate. He has 21 strikeouts in 48 at-bats. Taylor Trammell overachieved for a while. He's Taylor Trammell, career sub 170 hitter in the big leagues, now 4 for his last 36. You touched upon Cam Smith, Josh. I mean, he's playing like he belongs in the minor leagues for well over a month now, not even batting 150, an OPS of about 440. That's their outfield, apart from Jose Altuve. And then Yainer Diaz continues to just swing at everything, have a couple of games where, hey, yeah, look, he drew an intentional walk Saturday. He's worked exactly 1 walk since the All-Star break. So his on-base percentage for the season remains a laughably sad 280. Christian Walker's back at the 700 club level with his OPS. It's just not a good lineup at this point from 4 on down, paging Yordan freaking Alvarez. And secondarily, for maybe the bottom third of the lineup, hey, Jake Myers.
It's alarming that this team desperately needs Yordan back to fortify the offense, when literally the only moves at the trade deadline were meant to fortify the offense. So hoping that a guy who has missed basically the entire season can bail out Houston's offense really does seem like a fool's errand. But I guess if there's one guy that you would hang that sort of responsibility on, would be on the big shoulders of the big lefty. So we'll see. You guys have mentioned it. Jesus Sanchez in the middle of an 0 for 21. Cam Smith, you could kind of cherry pick any number you want to. I went with 14 for 94. On the other flip side of that, Ramon Urias has a 717 OPS since joining the team, so not terrible there. And Josh, you mentioned it. Correa has had a hit in all but 2 of the 14 games since being traded to Houston. So some silver linings there. But like we said, that part of the schedule that we focused on particularly last week was this 17-game stretch in which I think the only team over 500 that Houston faces is the Tigers, who they'll see next in Detroit. I asked you if this was a time for this team to stretch out the lead in the division. Well, now let me flip that question on its head due to current events. How possible is it that the postseason could slip away if Houston doesn't take advantage of this stretch?
I think they'd have to fold or just ultimately cave to the accumulation of injuries. The Guardians had their surge. They won 22 out of 29 games after losing Emmanuel Clase in the gambling investigation. But as mentioned, swept at home by a Braves team playing out the string. Now, the Astros did lose the season series to the Guardians if it gets down to a tiebreaker situation. But with basically 40 games remaining, if the Astros can't maintain at least a piece, the tiniest piece, all it takes of a 5-game lead over the Guardians, then they won't deserve to be in the playoffs. As I said, the Mariners have the better team right now. Seattle should win this division. Healthier, absolutely the better lineup when you just look at the pieces, the better depth in the starting rotation, and with Hader gone, the better bullpen, right? Munoz and Abreu probably even, but with King slipping, Sousa cracking some, Okert. I mean, the righties, you're just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Right? Sean Dubin was over his head. He's back under his head since coming off the injured list. But there's still enough of a working margin over the Guardians that if the Astros can just grunt out 500, the rest of the way, they win 88 games. I don't see Cleveland winning more than 88 games. But we note the Astros are 14-20 over their last 34 games heading into the Tigers series. So that, of course, the Astros are going to be able to play at least 500 ball. Well, if they can at least make some hay in this stretch, well, at the Tigers, 4 at the Orioles, we just saw what Baltimore's capable of with vastly more young talent on its roster than the Astros have on theirs. Okay, then you get the Rockies and the Angels. So, if the Astros still are ahead of at least Cleveland at the end of this stretch, I still think they're definitely better than 50-50 to at least get into the postseason.
I think they'll be okay. I think the offense will come around. The pitching's what I'm a little more worried about. I can't believe I'm saying this, but because Jason Alexander is on the team, I feel a lot better about the pitching staff right now. But that is where we are in 2025. And the guy I'm really focusing on, or maybe a couple guys that really need to get going, Fromber, month of August, 3 starts, ERA almost 6. It's been a little off for him. Arrighetti, I know he's just working his way back, but 2 starts, ERA over 7. And so these are the guys, when I brought up the ERA not being great, these are the guys that are really struggling. Brian King, 5 appearances, ERA over 5 this month. And you mentioned Sousa, his ERA is 4.76 this month. He's already up to 7 appearances. So that's what I'll be keeping an eye on. Can they get their arms around this thing? Because Dubin, I'm terrified. His ERA this month's over 37. Weems, I didn't think looked good at all. And then I thought, maybe they can bring up AJ Blueball to get some reinforcements. His ERA is over 5 in AAA right now. So I think you are going to have to count on the Lance McCullers of the world, Luis Garcia, to come in and give you some innings here. I'm very curious to see, how Espada is going to deploy these guys.
Yeah, and we'll presume there's not a midweek surprise that, it wasn't just an illness for Christian Javier, 3 innings and 50 pitches, but maybe Pena coughed on him at some point over the weekend. One other just stat I want to work in that noted, highlighted, marveled at earlier in the season, the Astros had an amazingly good record in games where their offense was no good. They were 19-27 at one point in games where they scored 3 or fewer runs. And for those not up to speed on where we were on that, 19-27, that's no good. In games that you scored 1, 2, or 3 runs, that you won 19 of them is incredible. All of last season, the Astros were 12-55 in such games. This year, they were 19-27. Well, since then, they're 1-15 in such games, which A, means there's still way too many games where the offense sleepwalks its way through. Right, shut out in 2 of the 3 games against the Orioles, who did not have Jim Palmer or Mike Mussina in their rotation over the weekend. What is a Brandon Young? 2 words not applied consecutively to you for a little while now, Brandon. But that guy, Lumberton, Texas, family and friends, great story. But 10 big league starts, he'd been terrible. And he goes perfecto, 7 2/3 against the Astros. Part of what makes baseball great. But the Astros, the offense, too often, and with the pitching really cracking. With the bullpen, the slippage. I mean, they were top 3 in Major League Baseball in bullpen ERA for 4 months? Now they're clinging to a spot in the top 10 at number 10. The starters are at number 11. So what has been the foremost strength of the team has weakened, whether it's just the ebb and flow. Josh mentioned it. Fromber needs to become more the guy who over a 14-start stretch was awesome with an ERA sub 2. And Hunter Brown needs to keep on keeping on. And how about Tuesday? It's not exactly a Cy Young winner-takes-all matchup, but Brown against Tarek Skubal with the Astros at the Tigers, the scheduled starters in that game.
Yeah, but that, again, going back to your previous point, that's just it. So Houston's been able to be good in low-scoring games because the pitching has allowed the games to be close. But they just coughed up 44 runs over the past 6 games. And Brandon Young got the same reaction that Brandon Walter got in the games before him, which was, who is this guy? And Houston was the beneficiary of the unknown guy that was performing well. But it's just disappointing that when the pitching needs the support of the offense to reciprocate, that the offense just has been nowhere to be found, at least as of late. I teased in the open, about the Josh Hader stuff, that he won't have surgery for the shoulder capsule strain. He'll shut down throwing for 3 weeks, and then he'll have to ramp up and hope that there aren't any setbacks. Okay. So in the same way as Isaac Paredes, there's a non-zero chance that a return is possible, however, highly unlikely. Now, I guess counterbalancing that is Luis Garcia has one more rehab start. Before him, Lance McCullers will likely have rejoined the rotation. This is coming from Dana Brown on the flagship. JP France is somewhere behind them. And we've seen from the returns of McCullers and Dubin that returns don't mean effectiveness. On the other hand, Christian Javier looked good, and Spencer Arrighetti looked better in his second start. So, and for Javier, like you said, we'll take them on their word that the early departure from his game was just a stomach bug or whatever. But I say all that is the pathway to having a solid rotation looks a lot more clear to the pathway of one that leads to having a solid pen. Do you think we'll see some sort of usage of returning starters where they get piggybacked or thrown into the pen to provide extra length for the staff?
Absolutely. They're going to have to do something. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle not Luis Garcia, but Lance McCullers. And I noticed on the flagship too, Dana was asked if they would have any consideration of using McCullers out of the bullpen, and he sidestepped the question. He didn't answer it. So I kind of made a mental note of that. So yeah, I'm curious how they're going to do this going forward. But I mean, you kind of have your big three, and it's hilarious I'm saying that, with Framber, Hunter Brown, and Alexander. And then we do have a lot of games coming up here. So we'll see if will they try and go to a 6-man rotation? I'm not sure. I think maybe Luis Garcia is the guy I'm most excited to see, like what he can do. I know his velocity had an uptick, and he's just kind of a bigger dude. So I'm kind of excited for him. My issue with McCullers is when he pitches, often he is very good, but then he gets just something always happens. We always talk about the vibes around McCullers. It's just, a blister. He hurts himself in the weight room. He's got to stay healthy and perform for me to really kind of believe it with him right now. JP France, I saw that he hit, I believe, 95 on the radar gun in one of his starts. So it sounds, and he's not a flamethrower or anything like that, but that's good to see. It appears his velocity's back too.
But JP France just isn't very good.
No.
He's had 5 build-up starts. He hasn't been quality in any of them. And I don't mean the definition of quality start. I just mean you look and the numbers have been lousy. Right? Javier's numbers weren't strong, a lot of walks. But we know Christian Javier has plus big league stuff and adrenaline, whatever. After the first 2 batters against the Red Sox, he was excellent. And against the Orioles, no problem with 3 runs, 1 inning until he sicked out. If they're putting France in the rotation, that's a cry of desperation, and maybe it gets there to that. But, Arrighetti, McCullers, Garcia, Colt Gordon again, before I'd be putting France in there. They have 7 more games in 7 days on this road trip, then 1 off day, and then 13 days in a row. So to me, the decision isn't even so much about, okay, who's the 6th starter, the 3 guys you're filling in behind the big 2 and Alexander, but how often do you want to go to the well on 4 days off for Framber Valdez, and especially for Hunter Brown as he draws near another 3rd year in a row professional innings pitched high. And we talked last week about how the overall results over his last 4 starts now back on the beam, but not going 7 innings in any of those starts. And the command's still been a little bit iffy, and the strikeout numbers down some. Overall results still good, 6 2/3, 1 inning last time out against the Red Sox. But if the tank starts to show signs of, if not empty, draining on Hunter Brown, that's the way the Astros could really fade over the last 6 weeks. So Hunter Brown is going Tuesday. You get 5 days off because of that off day they had on Thursday. Okay, well, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're going to pitch him on 4 days rest in Baltimore on Sunday? I would not. I'd have him wait. It's actually a wraparound series, 4 games with the Orioles. And then, you get a day off where then you have 13 more days in a row. So they're interesting decisions to be made. There's the short term and the long term, but the long term's not that long at what is left in the season. But I would not have a regular diet of Hunter Brown on 4 days rest down the stretch, since he's only done it like 2-3 times so far this season.
I joked about the legitimacy of McCullers' blister diagnosis on the last episode. I just wonder if his latest stint to the IL doesn't heal what ails him, whether that's an actual blister or whether it's just performance and being able to find it after surgery and such a long layoff. What are the odds that Houston cuts their losses with Lance? Or do you think because of the money that's on the line and him having at least one more year, that he's probably survives the guillotine for at least this season, and they let him rehab during the offseason, try to build back up and see where they're at?
I have almost no doubt he's back. Who'd run the coffee thing out in left field? But $17 million guaranteed, and I just think there's an easy storyline. I mean, not devoid of reason. I mean, there'll be plenty of eye rolling and head shaking. But hey, he made it to the end of the season healthy by McCullers standards. Now he'll have an offseason of preparation as opposed to full-on rehab and spring training to build up and to be ready to go into the season before his next injury.
Yeah. Yeah, and even back to the champagne bottle thing, it's just all these weird random things with McCullers. It's so strange. I think, with the money, and they need pitching right now, and they'll probably need pitching next year too. So you're already paying the guy. Yeah, I think they're going to keep him around just in case. It's, Dana Brown always talks about it. You can't have enough pitching. And if they think maybe they could get lucky and finally they get something out of McCullers, it's worth a shot. So, I think he'll be back.
It is tough to think that we'll look back at this season and call it anything other than the injury year, but just because that has been the storyline. But we'll see. We'll see like how they close the stretch. It's going to be interesting. Final thoughts before we're out the door, guys.
14-20 the last 34 games heading into Detroit. At the halfway point of the season, the Astros are on pace to win 96 games. Now they're on pace to win 90 games, which won the division by a tiebreaker a couple of seasons ago. They were a tick below that last year. If the Mariners push the Astros to where it does take 90 plus to win this division, and the Astros win the division, for all the vastly, obviously superior teams the Astros have had during this run, this would be the most remarkable and at some levels impressive division championship of the lot. Remember, the foremost objective is to at least get in the playoffs. Of course, you want to avoid that 2 out of 3 where the Tigers bounced them in a hurry last season. And for all the Astros sturm and drang and points of real concern, well, they're still very much within range of both Toronto and Detroit in the hunt for a top 2 record in the American League and avoiding that 2 out of 3 wild card round.
Yeah, for me, offense, you got to get some runs on the board here. You got some good pitchers set up in these next few games. Arrighetti, Hunter Brown, Fromber. So here we go. I know you're playing a good team, but offense got to get it going. Hopefully the pitching will come through in this series. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Astros had 1 extra base hit in the entire Orioles series, which I think was Altuve's home run. That ain't going to be enough, guys. We've got to get the sticks going here. So, Correa's been doing it. It's guys like Sanchez. We need to see those guys need to start picking it up, and hopefully it starts in Detroit.
They face Scooble Tuesday, Charlie Morton Wednesday, who's had 2 excellent starts, 1 bad one in 3 with the Tigers since they got him from the Orioles at the deadline.
Those are definitely some popcorn-worthy main event showdowns. Quick message, if you're interested in advertising your service or product on our show, contact our friends in the sales team by visiting houston.sportsmap.com/advertise. The link is also in our description. One last reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click like on the video. And if you listen on apps, like Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating while you're here. Next scheduled episode drops on Thursday, so make sure you subscribe to this channel with those notifications on. For Charlie and Josh, I'm Brandon saying so long. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and go Stros.